benefits that livestock provide is, number one, if livestock are removed from these rangelands, you create a tremendous fuel load in ungrazed forages. And the very habitat that is trying to be protected for the benefit of the sage chicken, Wyoming big sage, with those ungrazed fuel loads, a wildfire will take all of that in a very short period of time. Within a day or two, you could lose half of the sage chicken habitat on our ranch alone, just in a wildfire. It wouldn't be unheard of, you know, with ungrazed fuel loads to burn off 100,000 acres in a couple days. So then the very thing you're trying to protect would be lost. It may be 50 or 100 years before that sagebrush can come back, create that habitat. So it's a win-win situation for the livestock. We take off a portion of the forage, but creates a situation, niches that the sage chickens can survive in, or enhances their habitat. And we can manage that to some degree. If there's some concern over the cattle are grazing and adversely affecting the Wyoming big sage itself, we can address that by, you know, with our people that help us do those kinds of things, BLM or something. We can address that and, you know, reduce grazing pressure or increase grazing pressure, whatever's needed to help those birds.
Our best estimates of the number of sage grouse historically range in the millions. Our most recent counts indicate that in the 11 western states where sage grouse exist and the 2 Canadian provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, we have about 200,000 sage grouse that remain on the landscape today. The status of sage grouse populations in Montana is highly varied depending on where you're standing in the state. Some populations are stable, some are declining. In Valley and Phillips County in particular, that's one of our largest, most precious and intact landscapes that we have for sage grouse. It's ground zero in a lot of respects of where, if we want to put conservation dollars, South Valley and Phillips County is very high on people's priority list.
Sage grouse are entirely dependent on sagebrush habitat. It's a required food source for them, nesting cover, brood rearing conditions, the whole gamut of things. So winter habitat, sagebrush becomes very important as a forage source and a cover source. The current status is, and I'm going to speak more to the southern part of the county, but is relatively stable. We see the population over the last 10 years going up and down slightly, but really right now we're just 10% under our average. Probably somewhat due to a little bit of winter mortality last winter, but really we're sitting pretty good in the southern part of the county. Northern part of the county is a little different story. We've seen those leks drop off a little bit more. It's a little different habitat like we're looking at here. Silver sagebrush habitat tends to be a little more restricted to river and creek bottoms, so less habitat and more vulnerable populations to the north.
Casually, yeah, I have to say I've seen a decline, especially after the West Nile outbreak. And then the grouse in the early 2000s, they declined precipitously. Yeah, from the time I was in my teens in the 60s, 70s to now, there has been a decline, and I don't understand it. Because the rangelands are better than they were. We have more grass cover. We have more sagebrush. The sagebrush is healthier. I don't understand. There's something going on that I don't know. I don't think anybody else is either, because their focus tends to be on big identifiable things like livestock grazing or something. There's something else going on, and I don't know what it is.
Right now, sage grouse with the Fish and Wildlife Service are designated as a candidate species, which means that biologically they're warranted for listing as threatened and endangered as part of the Endangered Species Act, but that other higher priority listings for other critters trump sage grouse. The United States Department of Agriculture has a special initiative called the Sage Grouse Initiative, which is designed for the 11 western states where the species exists, to work with private landowners and bring Natural Resources Conservation Service staff to work with private landowners to do enough of the right conservation practices in the right places so that we can preclude listing of this species. Everything that we do in the Sage Grouse Initiative is voluntary, proactive, and incentive-based to work with landowners to help them increase the sustainability of their ranch and at the same time maintain and increase sage grouse populations.
One of the best tools is responsible grazing management that agriculture brings to the table, and it maintains that sagebrush grassland, that sage grouse habitat out there. So that's really the best tool we have.
We utilize every cost-effective conservation method that we can on the ranch. We have multiple pastures on the ranch so that we can manage the livestock grazing for the benefit of the grasses and the forbs, the native vegetation that's here.
This was the first weed prevention area established in the United States. And the reasoning behind that was we had fewer noxious weeds than basically anywhere else.
We use a lot of electric fence on the ranch because it's very cost effective. It is almost a non-barrier to wildlife. Rarely do you ever see they can travel between under and over electric fences with ease, where it prevents the coyote or the cows from moving around. So, you know, we cross-fence the ranch with electric fence because it's just very cost-effective and beneficial.
We strategically place our protein tubs and mineral supplements to pull livestock to areas that they traditionally underutilize, and that would be another NRCS program that we take part in.
One of the things the ranch has done to help with the sage grouse situation is we flag the fences. There's a lek 1,000 yards from this fence line, and which indicates there's a lot of nesting activity in the area close by. So we worked with the Natural Resources and Conservation Service to flag this fence.
We've done range tours and stuff like that to show ranchers and stuff, you know, what works, what doesn't work, and trying to educate them also, because ranchers don't ever intentionally hurt something like that, and any education that we can get that will help them, because the worst thing in the world for us is if the sage grouse were listed, how it would tie our hands. So ranchers are willing to make allowances and do things to prevent that from happening.
We like to, early in the spring, we like to not spend more than 2 weeks in any pasture. And we like to give every pasture at least 45 to 60 days rest before we go back to it if we graze it a second time in the year. This allows the plant to replenish its root system and set seed, build up a reservoir of seed and strong roots for the next drought that's coming. And, you know, to put the whole ranch management system in one sentence, we're always preparing for the next drought.
Private landowners and ranching in general in these large and open sagebrush dominated landscapes are the key to success to keeping sage grouse on the landscape. Ranchers are our original conservationists, and we want to work proactively with them to keep ranchers ranching. About 90% of all of the problems associated with sage grouse can be solved if we keep these large and intact ranches functioning.